welcome back to Rob's Fix-It Shop. As you can see, I've still got the AstroSonic Magnavox on the bench, and so today I want to wrap everything up if I can. I want to add this Bluetooth device to it so you can play music with your phone, and I want to work on the crossovers, and I want to work on the phonograph. And so it's actually going to be a pretty full video because I want to look at the tape input on this device and work on that, because there's some issues with what line level is today as what the line level must have been for this at the time. So if you're interested, hang on and let's get started. So here's what I'm looking at. So if we look at the tape play jacks, and so that's what's going to be coming from the tape player into the back of the console. It's got an input voltage of 1 volt RMS, right? And and that's way too much, right? Because that really translates to about let's see here, 2.8 volts peak to peak, right? And I was kind of seeing that when I was testing stuff. I had to really crank up my signal generator to bring when I was testing how many watts this thing had. To bring it into clipping, I almost had to have 3 volts peak to peak coming into the console. So modern line level is about 0.316 volts RMS and about 1 volt peak to peak, right? And so that's what I want to change this device so that it looks more like that. And so if we look at the circuit, so if we look at our circuit here, 8 and 9 here on this connector, those are the 2 pins I was using in the first video to put the signal generator into. But if you look, they come through a 100K resistor and then a 15K resistor. Those 2 resistors there form a voltage divider, and then I think maybe this 0.022 between those, that's kind of creating kind of a filter. So I got to be careful about that. But when I looked just a second ago, we said we had 100K impedance, input impedance, and I think it's actually about 115K input impedance, right? And so that this voltage divider then is taking that input voltage and it's that input, and it's really kind of bringing it down to about, I don't know, around 15% of what it is normally, because both all inputs come through this selector here and they go over here into this preamp, right? And so that the phono comes almost directly, right? So the phono here has a little bit of circuitry there, but then comes like that almost right into the preamp. So the phono goes almost directly into the preamp, but the tape comes in, they attenuate the signal a lot, and then that goes into the preamp here. And so what I want is I want to look at what it would take to replace this resistor with something more appropriate for a modern line level. All right, so let's bring out RobCAD, and so for the AstroSonic, we've got a impedance of 100K, input voltage of 1 volt RMS, and that's 2.8 volts peak to peak, right? And here's the circuit. We have 2.8 coming in, and we have this voltage divider of 100K and 15K, and then that produces 0.365 peak to peak going to the preamp, if it's the full, right? If it's the full amount, right? So then if I come down here, if I want the same amount going to the preamp of 0.365 volts, then what do we want to replace this resistor with? We can replace it with 26K. Then our input impedance will be around 45K, which is great. I think modern line level is expecting greater than 10K, and we'll have that, and we'll have the input of we'll have an input of 0.316 volts RMS, and we'll have 1 volt peak to peak, right? And so we're going to have our modern line level. So I'm going to try, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and hook the Bluetooth up to the stereo. Let's turn it on full and let's see what we've got. And then let's replace that resistor and see what we end up with. Sound fun? I think so. Okay. Okay, so I just put a frequency generator app on my phone, right? And I have the volume at 100%. And then I'm connected through Bluetooth, and I'm connected to the input, the tape auxiliary input here on my scope. And here you can see that we've got a little over 1 volt peak to peak. And yeah, that's just what I was expecting. It's line level, right? Okay, so now I have my my blue is connected up to the speaker. You can hear that. So I'm going to turn it on to the dummy load, and I'm just going to crank it to full, right? And so when I crank it to full, if you look here, our RMS going to the speaker, let's see, make sure the balance is right, but the RMS going to the speaker is about 4 volts, right? So that's half of what the stereo can do, right? Because when I checked it before, I could put out 8 watts on here. And so that here, this is half of that. Let me figure that out. I think it's half. So 4 squared divided by 8. Yeah, that's 2 watts. So what I'd really like to do then is make it so that when you have line level coming in, that so really what I'd like to do is that when we had line level coming in, we can get a lot louder, right? Because this is just cranked full. So yeah, so let's replace those resistors, and I think we can, let me shut it off, and let's look at what we're looking at here. So that when we were looking at the circuit before, so this is starting to look a little bit messy here, but if you look at the input for 8, right, it comes through here, then through this resistor right here, and then and here's that 15K, here's the 100K, right? And let's just check that. Whoops. That's our 100K, and this is our 15K, right? They've risen a little bit, and then coming up 9, then you've got the 100K right here, and the 15K then is right here. So we're just going to leave the 15K. We're going to swap out the hundreds and see if we get what we're looking for. All right, so we got them soldered in, so let's see. Yeah, that should be fine. Turn that on. Plug it in. Turn it on. Already to clipping. I must not have turned on the volume. So our output is peak to peak 1.8 volts, 356 millivolts RMS, and turn this up. We can see we can just get into clipping just a little bit there, right? So that worked out perfect. Let's see if we can go to a square wave. So one thing I was kind of looking at is another thing I wanted to kind of look at here is we've got this capacitor right here, this 0.0022, and so I think that this resistor and this capacitor here form a low pass filter. Capacitor, resistor, right? And if I put in 0.0022 and 100,000 here, oops. Then we get where we start to attenuate after this cutoff. Well, that's exactly what we were seeing in the first video, that we're boomy, right? We have a lot of bass, and then we start to cut off around 1K. Well, that's, and if we have 115 here, that brings it down a little bit, but I think we would use 1K there, right? So now when I've got it to 25, no, actually when I have it to 41K, then we get our cutoffs around 1700. So I wanted to check out to see if this thing is really a low pass filter like I think it is, and why it would be there, right? Because really we're kind of screwing up our input signal, so yeah, so I hooked my signal analyzer. So let's just look. I was kind of messing around, so I took that capacitor out and I flipped it over to the other side. So that's part of the filter to ground. And yeah, so let's look at our analyzer. Okay, so here's the frequency response with the capacitor in. And we see that we've got pretty flat until we get to about 1600K, which is what we predict, 1.6 kilohertz, which is what we predicted, and then it just drops off, and you know, so you're losing all your high frequencies. And so now let's pull that capacitor off there. And run it again, and we are flat across there. Now that doesn't mean that the stereo is flat. I'm just looking at that input circuit there, but yeah, we don't drop off at all. So that's pretty nice, but we do want to, let's see, just start to drop off around really high up. So that's kind of interesting to me. Now that sounds right. Yeah, it just was not sounding right. Like in the first video, it just seemed like there was too much of a drop off in the high frequencies. And yeah, it sounds pretty great now. So I pulled those caps out of there, this one right here and this one right here. I've got the new resistors in, and so I think the Bluetooth is going to sound pretty great through here. Okay, so I think we're going to start looking at the record player, see how well it works, and see if we can get this guy replaced with a decent mat. And okay, so let's just take a look. It's a Magnavox Micromatic. I don't know whether the M there stands for Magnavox or Micromatic, but they, like their trademark, they've got it there. Little clip here, all I had to do was kind of turn this clip here, all I had to do was turn this to get the whole thing out. There's supposed to be two of them, but there's only one. There's supposed to be another one right here. We've got 3 speed settings, auto. If you want to have your friends over for a dance party, you've got a thing for 45s. And yeah, everything, I mean, it's a little bit stiff, but everything seems pretty good. Seems to rotate nicely. I don't know, I've really got my fingers crossed on this. Let's take a look underneath here. Okay, so it did sound like the motor was kind of spinning a little bit. Let's just take that platter off and see what we've got. Looks nice and clean. The motor's spinning. So it really seems like this we're not getting enough pressure through here against the inside. The guy, you know, the looks like this rubber wheel contacts here, and I tried kind of adjusting this thing here, which was a huge mistake. But these bumpers on the motor, and I took these out. These are really kind of sloppy in here, and so got some of these. So I'm going to try putting these in and see if the motor starts contacting a little bit better. If not, I'm not really sure what to do there. But yeah, so like I said, I'd taken this clip and these washers off earlier, and I don't know, it doesn't seem that bad, but it doesn't. It seems that the motor has a lot of play in it too. So I'm going to take this off and let the motor kind of dangle there. Okay, so I'll just flip it upside down and pull that last clip out. I don't want the motor to fall because it's got the Okay, so I set that like that. Pull these out. That seems much better. So let's see, I'm going to try to flip it over and hold that until I get one of the okay, so all those mounts, it still seems to have a lot of play in there. But let's just try it out. Well, it's been a while. I've been kind of messing with this guy quite a bit. And, you know, it's not spinning up to speed. And I've cleaned all the parts here. And I took the motor apart, which is easy to get apart, and I cleaned that up. And cleaned all this up really well. You know, kind of messed with the spring a little bit here, greased this all, cleaned it and greased it, and still I'm having a lot of problems with not being able to maintain speed on here. And so the one thing I was thinking, so I was having a hard time figuring out how to adjust this thing, because I can't, as soon as I put the platter on, I can't see it. And I can't see, and originally when I started working on it, the wheel was not touching at all. Now I measured the wheel, and the wheel actually, I mean, it feels a little bit hard, but not too bad, right? So I cleaned up the outside of the wheel, and it's the right size, and so it doesn't feel like it's shrunk. So what I did is I made myself this thing here that's the same size as the platter, right? So if you look at the inside of the platter, right, it's got, you know, the wheel kind of comes along here. And so I made this thing the same distance from here to here so that I could kind of see what was going on, right? I mean, I don't know. And it does look like the way it's adjusted now. So right now I'm at... I go to 33, right, and got my wheel. I should be able to loosen up this nut here and adjust this guy so that this is properly pushing against here, right, and then also connecting with the motor here. And so you can see right now it's not, right? But I can adjust that, loosening this up, moving it over a little bit, right? And then I can do it without having the top on. But for all that messing around and thinking about it, I still can't get enough speed. And I think the bottom line here, I think the best I can guess is that the motor does not have the oomph that it needs to turn that wheel at the right speed, because if I have it, even if I have this gearing in the right place, right, let's see, right, it's not pushing anywhere near the speed. And we can look at that in a little bit, what speed it's going at. Now if I put it on 45, I can kind of get it to get around 30 RPM, nowhere near, and it's not consistent. And so I feel like my wheel is contacting it's not, I'll have to adjust it. It's not properly, I feel like my wheel is properly touching the side and over here. I got to mess with that a little bit, get that right. You know, it's really close. So I can loosen this little nut here. Like I say, I'm not an expert on these. I've never had any luck whatsoever getting them to work. So, and I warned the owner of just that fact. But so then, right, so then I can take this and turn it a little bit, so then it's got, you know, good contact there, good contact here, and then tighten it back down. Put a screw here, pull this off. Yeah, so the whole thing moves. I don't know, it's a pain in the butt. So they're, you know, they're cinching up pretty tight. Almost pressing it a little bit too much, but you know. So here, let's plug it in. So there, our motor's spinning, right? If we put this on here, I won't put it all the way down there, I'll just roll out of the way. It feels like, no, that's not good enough, so I'll move it a little more. Right, so that just overlaps a little bit. So if I could get it to stay there, I feel like it would, you know. I think the motor also has some say in it, right? But that's almost too far. Let me go a little bit the other way. Oops. See, that looks about right. So, I don't know. I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to just put a little bit of Loctite on there so it doesn't move. But, yeah, I don't think I'm going to have success with this guy. Okay, so we got a last little bit of recapping to do. Here we've got a little crossover network, and so we're just gonna clip this guy out. And this was just stapled in. Yeah, I gotta remember what side's what. I guess I don't. So the thing is that this is a bipolar cap, and nice Nichicon, I don't know, let's test it. I mean, I'm going to replace it either way, but yeah, that doesn't look great. So, I think I'm just going to see if I can put this like... So here's our AstroSonic. It's all fixed up. Take a look, and let's switch it on.
See season series for the Twins over Houston.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty good. I was really happy when I got the speakers all hooked up. How good the speakers sounded. They looked like they were in really good condition, but I'm not sure. Of course, the turntable I never did really get to work at speed, but the receiver really seems to be working nice.
What do you think there, Brian?
Yeah, the receiver really seems to be working nice. So let's try the Bluetooth then. Let's see, I got my phone here.
Lord, we chained our hearts in vain. We jumped under your spell of love. No one could deny. Don't you? 'Cause baby, you never do know what we must know. I've had some time to think about you all along.
So with the phonograph, the mechanism does seem to work. And here I've got it on 45. Yeah, so that's a little rough. Yeah, I never did get that motor to go to right speed, and I didn't feel like replacing the motor and replacing the wheel, and you know, I mean, it should work if those two things are new, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it I don't know if it's worth it or not, but I did kind of glue down this platter, and it does look pretty nice. It's a nice set together, and it's got the fancy, if you have 45s. If you could play 45s, that'd be pretty nice. Well, that's it for Rob's Fix-It Shop on this 1969 AstroSonic. It was a pretty interesting job. There's a lot of fun things to kind of discover about the circuit and kind of bring into modernity, so it could be actually used. But I think it's in good condition. I think the circuit was really nice to work on. The speakers are in good condition. Unfortunately, the phono, I could not get that to go at the right speed. But, you know, there are other handymen in the world that can do that kind of work. So maybe it's not the end of the world for it, because I think it's a pretty good quality turntable. But the sound coming out of it is really nice. I was really happy with the speakers, their condition. And so if you enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe, and thanks for coming along.